All right, so good evening from India, and we welcome you all on the 53rd webinar of OSPAS. The subject of today's webinar is the role of security in healthcare sector during COVID-19. My name is Rajiv Mathur, and I am in place of Dr. Martin Gill. I'm being honored to chair this webinar. This is with special thanks to Security Link India and all the other supporters that we have. So as we are aware that COVID-19 is getting uncertain day by day, and everything, the situation is very dynamic, and we have to adjust to the situation every day. Apart from healthcare sector being in the front line, security has an important role to play. And we were discussing that security and healthcare have to be in sync to cater the current situation that we have in hand. So today we have a panel of experts from the same field. I would quickly like to invite all the panelists here, and for the very, very brief introduction, we'll start with Mr. Anil Puri.
Good evening, everybody. It's lovely to be here with you all. And my name is Anil Puri, and I'm the chairman of AP Securitas, a company which is focused on security and facility within the country. We work across the country.
Thank you. Rajesh.
Yeah. Good evening. Namaskar, all of you. This is Rajesh Sawant. I work for Kokilaben Dhirubhai Ambani Hospital, and our hospital is accredited hospital for JCI and NABH, and all the accreditation which are there are required for an international standard. We have acquired that for last 7 years, and in continuing progress, we are doing the same and providing. I'm basically looking after the security, surveillance, fire safety of the hospitals, incoming and outgoing people, as well as I ensure in this pandemic, whatever happens, as being the head of security and for the disaster management as well, we are playing a key role along with all of our clinical and our healthcare people in the same pandemic scenario.
Thank you, Rajesh. Dr. Parinita.
Hello and good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Parinita Kaur, consultant at Akash Healthcare Super Speciality Hospital. It's fairly a new hospital, about 250 bedded and about to expand. And in the 3 years that we have been around, the hospital has done a pretty good job. And we are right now in the thick of this pandemic, and me being an internal medicine person, we are seeing the COVID patients day in and day out, and hoping for this pandemic to get over and all of us to have a normal routine life.
Thank you all of you for your brief and quick introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the panel discussion, I would like to request you, if you have any questions, you can please write it down in the question and answer sections down below, and we'll try to answer them as much as possible. So coming to the panelists, Mr. Anil Puri, what is your opening remarks on the subject, the role of security in the healthcare sector during COVID-19? Mr. Puri.
Well, let me say that thank you to everybody for the opportunity to be able to share some views on the aspect of security in the role of the health sector. And at the start, let me begin by saying that the security sector normally performed very regular work and regular tasks in the day-to-day security aspects of their given areas of work, whether it was looking after the entries of the material or the exit or anything like that. So the tasks like visitor control, staff control, even going to the extent of maybe even monitoring the dispatch of ambulances, which is something which got done even though one was not trained for that, but one managed to do those kind of things. And suffice it to say that bulk of it was quite regular and mundane day-to-day work which is happening, which is where we have been actually doing security as per what was happening in pre-COVID times. But then within the medical sector, the duties were quite a bit partly due to the nature of the work and partly due to the importance of security in the patient care part of it. because the healthcare has special requirements as far as those aspects are concerned, and the safety and the control of all aspects of incoming and outgoing of people, material, medicines. There's a lot of equipment, and the biggest risk in terms of visitors, especially when you have to regulate the visitors at working and the visiting hours and the non-visiting hours. That formed a lot of focus area for that. One second, just sorry, my apologies. Then one fine day, we suddenly found that there was an entire change. When you got up in the morning and you found that there was a lot of media which was happening in terms of the importance of this new fever and new challenge which was coming up in the medical sector. And the situation started to change rapidly. Suddenly, the health sector was coming into the eye of the storm, so to say. And you were having a storm where everybody was at sea, whether it was a medical fraternity, whether it was the doctors there, whether it was the support staff, whether it was the equipment suppliers, or for that matter, security. Everybody was at sea because this was something which nobody had ever faced before. We've talked of we did not even know that it was a pandemic. We just knew that it was happening across. And suddenly the media brought it out to the forefront, and it started to gain the focus which was required, and the pandemic situation started to come up. And that was a time when everybody, whether it was in the medical sector, whether it was security sector, whether it was the vendor sectors or the equipment manufacturers, everybody had to go in for what I would call a reset of the way that they looked at their particular aspects. And suddenly everybody had to gear up in a very different manner. So whether the doctors had to try and figure out what they had to do, whether the vendors had to try and figure out things like providing equipment and etc. And then to add to the bigger problem, we came in with a lockdown, which got everybody on a back foot, and a lockdown which was like a total lockdown. So the security sector per se was able to save itself primarily because the government gave us the status of an essential service, which allowed us to be able to continue to move despite the lockdown, to be able to have the support of the police, etc., who were otherwise trying to hold people down and trying to enforce the lockdown situation. And when those kind of things happened, we were able to actually turn around and see that how is it that we need to make sure that the various challenges which are coming up within our own sector. It was like the security personnel were not even aware of what it was. Suddenly they were facing a whole sort of information overload, where everybody was talking about a pandemic without really knowing very much about it. And the medical fraternity was gasping with that. But
allow me to interrupt, sir. We'll move on to the opening remarks to Mr. Rajesh and come back to you with the challenges. Rajesh, you being the facility security head, your opening remarks, please.
Yeah, well, it is an opportunity for me to basically express what goes in the sector where we work as the monitoring authorities over security services, and as well as trying to being a bridge between the doctors, the clinicians, and the outside patients. Like that is how we try to differentiate. It is the inpatient, the internal customers and the external customers. That is how we divide. Internally, it's all of us, and externally, it's everybody who comes in to seek the services. So what we saw and what we feel, means what I feel in this pandemic scenario is yet in India, in Mumbai, and being the hot center for the patients. Even though we have a 700 bedded facility where I'm basically taking care of, and adding to that, I have another 250 bedded facility, around 950 bedded facility, catering. Out of that, we are catering for about 200 beds just for the COVID care, and also completing around 2,000 plus patients just for the COVID care. So when I'm talking about whatever experience I'm trying to share here, and trying to basically try to basically discuss here and put forth is for those patients and those relatives, those who have faced, emotional situations, lockdown situations, as well as the situation with which their dear ones, they have departed, and all those kind of scenarios handled by security. Being a monitoring authority over the security agencies and security people, it becomes more responsibility for us to ensure that, the clinicians, those who are basically working on the patients, they are not having tough time, and they are having full concentration on serving the patient with the focus scenario, with the focus, even though still today, till date, there is nothing conclusive about, how to deal with this kind of a pandemic. Many people have, their own ways of handling, and many sets in India, especially in Mumbai also, we have seen. But as per the government policy and the state policy and the regulations, we are trying to ensure that there is less hassle-free system for the visitors, for the patients, those who are coming in, and for those who are getting treated, other than for the COVID, other than the COVID protocols, because it's just not COVID, it is also non-COVID patient, those who are largely not being taken care because of the pandemic sort of declaration by the government. So I can say proudly in Mumbai, we are the only one who are catering for non-COVID patients largely than any hospital. At the same time, we are also catering for in terms of beds. We are also catering for large number of COVID patients, combining our other institution, which is a little away from our hospital. And at the same time, we are not giving up on the approach and the strength what is required for to deal with this thing, like just like the clinicians, they are actually getting inside the the sterile zone, wearing all those gears, which is so suffocating, and dealing with the patients day in day out. It's
Right.
really appreciating, and we are helping them with the best of our ability. And so far we haven't come across any difficulties from the government or from the local bodies. So I can say round and round in India, the industry is really doing so well for treating the patients. But at the same time, just the population explosion is so much, to cater for those kind of demands, it becomes very difficult. And
All right.
so
Thank you so much, Rajesh. Sorry, I have to cut you
yeah,
also.
that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
We have heard two perspectives. Mr. Puri spoke about from the operations perspective. I heard you being more empathetic towards the patient. Let's have the opening remarks from Dr. Parinita.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, with the world turning topsy-turvy after the arrival of COVID-19 pandemic, each person, organization, and sector has had to go through a lot of changes and through a process of redefining their roles. Healthcare in itself has had to adapt to a lot of changes and has had to adopt new techniques and various measures for patient safety and security. So there are new challenges apart from the already existing overwhelming ones. As far as we would love to applaud the efforts of healthcare professionals for being on the front line and putting their sweat, blood, and tears to the pandemic, it's also important to recognize, appreciate, and cheer the security personnel for the amazing resilience that they have displayed. The job responsibility has increased and the manpower has remained the same. Unfortunately, the same people have had to guard more places and even they are falling sick. But despite the shortage of manpower, they are doing a really good job. With the number of people uh, these men and women are exposed to on a daily basis, their need to be extra careful increases many-fold. They are ensuring at all times that the patients and their attendants are screened at all entry points. The safe and unsafe zones are clearly demarcated. So in all the hospitals, these days there are green corridors, there are green zones, and there are red zones where the patients who are, the COVID patients can travel and they can go through. They are marked as red zones so that there is no mixing of patients. So all that is ensured by the security personnel, whether that includes the triage, the elevators, the corridors, the waiting areas, the floors, and the wards. At the same time, they need to deal empathetically with the anxious relatives of COVID patients admitted in the wards, as well as the non-COVID patients, alleviating the fears and anxiety of the patients and companions alike. So with, we were talking about the visiting hours. So now with the, with the demand that we have for the patients to sometimes get the plasma, sometimes get other medications. So the patient's relatives, one challenge is that a lot of them are quarantined. Those who can come to the hospital, there is no time for visiting hours, although they are not allowed to visit their patients in the ward. But then again, all these challenges of visiting hours, in and out of the hospital activity has increased many folds. So with all these challenges, I think the security is doing a pretty good job. All applauses for the security. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you so much for all of you for your opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions, you can write it down in the question and answer session. But going back to Mr. Anil Puri, you were talking about the challenges. Please let us know from the service provider point of view, what are the new range of new challenges, new problems, new difficulties that you face specifically in the healthcare facility management, Mr. Puri.
One of the biggest challenges was the fear mongering and lack of detailed information of the extent of the illness and the rapid need that we faced as an industry for the re-education, the retraining, and the awareness generation for the force which was deployed all across the country. So that was one of the biggest challenges. Here we were dealing with fear which was coming out. Here we were dealing with lack of information, and yet we were having to re-educate our people, retrain them on what we figured out was going to be the new norm as far as this health requirements are concerned. The other challenge, as I said earlier, was that as the awareness and the tackling of the COVID, as well as the medical fraternities' understanding of the problems and the ways that they needed to deal with it, caused again a lot of change which needed to be done on a very rapid basis. Now, all that rapid change which was to be done, you needed to retrain the people, remake them get there, and then challenges in terms of shortage of manpower, in terms of making them come up and down, making them actually deal with visitors, making them sensitive to the needs of people who are coming in for COVID or visitors for their families. Now, both have different aspects. The person who's got the COVID is already under trouble and the family is in trauma. Now, at that point in time, you need to try and ensure that they follow all the processes, the protocols laid down. Now, trying to tell a person that he's not wearing a mask or he's got to keep a distance at a time when he's under trauma, it has a different challenge totally to it. So all that sensitization needed to be done. They needed to be made to, feel comfortable that even though they were not wearing PP suits, but then we had to make them understand the need for a mask, the need for wearing gloves, the need to be able to even go in for new equipment which was coming in terms of being able to monitor visitors coming in through AI and through camera-based information, so that you could try and bring about a segregation of people without coming in contact with people. So all that kind of thing, what originally we used to have people, frisking people when they entered. Today, that was a no-no. We had to stand back. We had to make sure that we were able to perform that aspect of duty whilst we were telling them to keep the distance and to wear the mask. So these were some of the challenges which we faced.
Thank you. Rajesh, coming to you. You being, in charge of a facility, what are the challenges that you faced with the security providers at your end? I mean, I'm not in particular, but what do you think could be the phrases? And what were the challenges that the clinical team, the doctors on ground faced and you had to manage?
Well, challenges are not over yet. So it's a daily ongoing thing for us, and as well as just not for us, for everybody in India as such, and worldwide as well. However, I can simply just point out few challenges which Anil ji has already expressed some of them. But it's like the trauma, the patient relative in trauma, then the visitor who is coming in, and like in a hospital scenario, we have a protocol in which a person, since I mentioned it in my earlier conversation of my introduction, that the non-COVID patient, who turns out to be a COVID patient later on, how do we deal with it? So we have a strategy in which we allow the patient to, first of all, walk in, get tested for COVID, keep him on a one-day protocol, within the hospital. And if he turns out negative, then, he can go for the non-COVID, you can say, clinical protocols for diagnosis or operations, etc., etc. And if he turns out positive, then we put him back in the COVID ward. Now, the challenge is, we have a limited bed allotted for the COVID patient category. Then the challenge becomes, the government is already telling us to, basically put in the COVID patient through the channel of them. Then the new patient who is coming, it becomes difficult to adjust him, with the already loaded patient bed strength. So it is just not with us, as we know how the scenario happens in Mumbai, across in Maharashtra. As far as that is concerned, I can say that it is a challenge for every facility because they have more load coming in. And the only challenge for making everybody understand the government policy on asymptomatic, government policy on people with high fever, people with absolutely, breathlessness, and people with comorbidities, and, some of these kind of, reasons, they can only get admitted. Since we have a segregation of ventilator patients, we have segregation of non-ventilator patients, and these beds are spread across the hospital facilities, providing this kind of COVID care across Mumbai and Maharashtra. So the information network for people is little confusing. However, because of the population and the the response of everybody, those who generally get panic, even they have a small fever, or even if they have a normal coughing, everybody is turning out and coming out to just rule out that we are not so-called, dangerous patient for the COVID facility. Then somebody has to segregate them. Then the security plays the role. He has to tell them, generally the doctors and the clinicians would come in and say that to them, but they are occupied with, other functions because of these protocols. They have got more things to look after within the department. So these things are taken care by security personnel, educating them and making them fearless, to face a patient with a mask or without a mask. One has to basically gear up himself first. So, tackling the security personnel, that they have to be there standing and not remaining absent for small fever reasons, is a challenge for us. Shortage of manpower is a but obvious thing, which everybody is having that fear, mongering in their head and, across all the media sometimes. But that is one challenge which I feel is dealt so far pretty well. But, as the numbers are increasing in India, in Maharashtra, we have to gear up more for that. And I feel other than this challenge, I don't see, the clinical people are doing very well. The security people are doing their best. And we just hope that the COVID, it doesn't jump to, some space which is unmanageable for us in India at least.
Thank you, Rajesh. Coming to you, Dr. Parinita, as both of them said that the security had various challenges. What do you think were the challenges from medical point of view, which security managed well? And then we have some questions coming in from the audience.
Yeah. So I think one place where the biggest role of security has come is, dealing with the patient's relatives and dealing empathetically with them, because it is a situation of utmost concern for the patient's attendants, because they are unable to see them. So they are unable to meet their patients with whom they have been, pre-COVID area. Hospitals had sort of, the private hospitals especially had sort of become, like a consumer, the approach of patients had become like a consumer oriented approach, that, we are here for some service and we need that. Now, again, with the COVID coming up and with the challenges that everybody is seeing, and they know how unpredictable the disease is, and the way they are unable to see their, loved ones. So the anxiety level of the companions is pretty high because they're unable to meet them. So the only channel that remains with the patients and their attendants is through the doctor. So, and to the communication that is being given, and that is also like, once in a day or twice in a day that information is given to the patient's companions. Because, more than that, it is not possible for a clinician to actually keep explaining the condition. So at this time, a lot of patients' companions would come to the hospital, want to go and see the patients. So initially, they were not allowed at all. But now, if they need to go and visit the patients, they can do it in a proper PPE if required. Now, what happens is that a lot of these patients whose companions, they are close contacts, and they should actually be not coming to the hospital. So a lot of these patients, companions, their first-hand contacts should actually be staying at home and quarantining themselves, but they keep coming to the hospitals and not getting themselves checked, only in with the fear that they would be, home isolated or quarantined, and they would be unable to come to the hospital or move around freely. So that is one challenge that, as a whole, I think the whole country is facing this problem, because there is a, and I would like to make a point here that there is a lack of social responsibility in our citizens. We have to ensure that it is not just the responsibility of the doctors, the healthcare workers, or the security personnel to make make the patient all right if he has fallen sick. So at the first place, it is our responsibility to stay home, to stay protected, to use the mask in a correct way, so that we do not fall sick. There is no fun in doing that. So we have, I would want to make this strong point that we as citizens are lacking this social responsibility, and we must adhere to the norms and adhere to the 14 days or 17 days of quarantine, whatever is required. Rather than that, we move around, we come to the hospitals, we come to the doctors' cabins, we dodge, and we want to dodge the security, we want to hide the facts, and that is where we are exposing the people who are at the front line. So our security personnel are being exposed, we are being exposed.
Thank you.
So that is the biggest channel.
Thank you, Dr. Parinita. I have a question for you, which is from Rajiv Kumar. How to secure movement of COVID patients in hospitals, especially from ICU to the ward and vice versa? Dr. Parinita?
Yeah, so there are very set protocols wherein the corridors are fixed for the COVID patients, the lifts are fixed for the COVID patients, the floors, the wards are fixed, where the entry of any non-COVID patient or even anybody else who is not allowed to be in the COVID ward is not allowed. So, for example, in our hospitals, we have a floor dedicated to the COVID patients, and now with the numbers increasing, we have had to convert another area in another floor also, but then that area is totally demarcated, and the lift to that ward is also demarcated. There is a manned, it is a guarded lift, and only the COVID patients can be transferred. Now, for example, if we have to do any investigations for that patient, the patient cannot be shifted down to the radiology department unless we create a corridor. So the whole corridor is created. There is a time fixed If there is an emergency, then we have to stop all other patients and all other procedures so that the corridor is created and we can do the investigations. These patients are totally separated from the non-COVID patients. The number of the the doctors, the staff who can move around in these places are also marked, and there are like for example in our hospitals we have cards wherein we allow those staff to be only in those particular places for which the card has been issued to them. Doctors or people who need to move around in other places, they are given a different card, so the movement is allowed for them. Otherwise, it is totally strict. So there is no mixing of staff as well.
Thank you. I will come to Rajesh, to you. The question, which is again coming from Rajiv Kumar, says, what are the challenges and effective management during code red or preparedness on the fire safety? I think we all saw there was a situation in Ahmedabad in a COVID ward where we had a fire situation. What do your comments on challenge effective management during code red?
Yeah, it's a good question. In the code red situation, generally, the fire team which is there, the quick response team which is there all the time ready, we have geared them up, with the PPE suits. They can just go into the COVID ward, which is a separate ward and facility in our hospital, so that they can just rush in there. However, not to rule out and not to ignore the NABH and JCS standards which we have in our hospitals, wherein all the staff members are very well trained to respond to any small fires, because in a COVID ward or be it a ICU facility, there cannot be an explosion. There could be a fire which would start only from an incipient stage. If not looked at, then it would go to a blaze stage. So if anything if any of such thing occurs, unfortunately, our staff are well equipped. We give them reminders, we inform them, and we ensure that in case the staff is not able to respond, then our fire team, which is round the clock available, they respond to that, especially the code red one, go inside, deal with the fire. At the same time, evacuation is another big question. So those people, those who are going to get evacuated, they will also go for the lateral evacuation. And further to that, since our facility has that kind of a capacity and capability, to cater and isolate, people from one zone to other zone, I can say it proudly. However, it is not, everywhere in India or in Mumbai also. So this is what is our plan basically for that. And even though if there are any other codes other than the code red, which would give a medical code, they have also been taken care for the kind of any response, because there is a doctor team which is available. So everybody is very well equipped. In the private hospital scenario and the government hospital scenario, the scenario is little different and little difficult to handle, because they are facing certain challenges of staff going on leave, and the infections going little higher than expected. So they have their other challenges. But as far as the private sector is concerned and our hospital scenario is concerned, we are prepared. And this is how we have designed it, so that in case even our fire team, if they are not able to respond, we have the housekeeping, we have the HCA team. They are capable of dealing with the fire, because they are the second in team who would basically, work as a stretcher team, those who would come to, pull the patients and push the patients and shift the patient. So, since we don't have, more than 40 patients in our hospital and 100 patients in our other facility, we don't have, you can say, much of a challenge what we see. Whereas the government facilities, they have 200, 500, to an extent of 1,000 patients. It would be a challenge. However, I have seen some of the facility made by the government, and especially in Mumbai, in BMC, they have even catered for this code red situation in a way to isolate in case of these kind of scenarios take place. As well as in Delhi, I can say, as far as the metro cities are concerned in India, they have taken well care for even all these eventualities in case of A, B, C, or Z.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. I'll come to Mr. Puri now. There's a question from Jim Spencer, and I think he's from out of India. He says, what actions were taken by your law enforcement agencies regarding any deliberate cuffing and or spitting towards your staff? Mr. Puri.
Could you repeat the last part of that? I'm sorry, I didn't get the last part.
What actions were taken by your law enforcement regarding any deliberate cuffing and or spitting towards the staff?
Well, let me put it across to you this way, that within the country, the law enforcement and the security have actually been able to work hand in hand, primarily because of the immediate response towards this pandemic, which was taken by the government, whereby they said that the security is going to be a force multiplier for the law enforcement. And then because of that, they use that as a way to declare us as an essential service. So what really happened is that while we were not given the freedom of law enforcement, but we were quasi law enforcement in terms of having to control a lot of these kind of activities. And the only problem that we face over here is that when this kind of a situation comes in, you've actually got to bring the law enforcement. And the law enforcement itself was actually stretched to a limit, trying to ensure both lockdown as well as other aspects of security. And hence, it was very often left to us where we had to deal with these kind of situations. And they needed to be tackled in a very, very delicate manner, while you need to explain what you're trying to do to the people so that they don't do, because we do not have the authority to be able to take a suggestive action on that. So it was a question which had to be in certain drastic measures, wherever you had the law enforcement available, then you handed them over there, and that's what they would take. But it was more in terms focused on trying to prevent these kind of things happening rather than trying to deal with them as a post thing.
Thank you. Before we come to the closing remarks, there's a question from Kuwait, and my friend Musaid Al Najar is asking, since we are talking about security at the hospital, this is not the question. He's referred to an incident where a lady at ICU was shot dead by her brother with a handgun. Are we prepared in India? Mr. Puri, to start with you.
Well, I would say that the security scenario in India does not allow us the law enforcement capabilities. So we technically are not prepared for these kind of things. We do follow basic protocols in terms of trying to search people, trying to be able to do frisking, etc., to ensure that they do not bring in objectionable or contraband or banned things into the premises. But there are cases where we will be caught off guard totally on that. And the incident which he's referring to is genuinely has happened. So there is a way that people will actually bring in, because especially at the COVID time, the protocol also meant contactless interface. Now, if there is a person carrying something in, I do not have the facility to do that, to check him out, because we were concentrating more in terms of trying to ensure that we can segregate the people with COVID or with fever or with symptoms vis-a-vis non-COVID people, and trying to ensure that they were following the protocols laid down in terms of their personal as well as public safety. So those were the focus areas. This was something which was not really focused on. As far as security is concerned, security sector is concerned.
Thank you, sir. Rajesh, your comment on that. How are you prepared that, as Mr. Puri just mentioned, that there is no physical checking, there is no, perhaps it's a contactless entry these days. How do you ensure that this kind of incident does not happen in your hospital, Rajesh?
See, well, we have these basic infrastructure, which is required basically to screen people and then only allow them. And we have layered kind of a security in which, anybody who is entering and, anybody is moving in the hospital, they are identified with the purpose. We have very short, I can say very short visit time, not for the COVID visitors, and also for the regular non-COVID patients, visitors, we have a very strict policy. Now, everybody who walks in, they walk in and walk out through only single entrance. And that single entrance is guarded so well that, we try to ensure that everybody is screened to an extent where we don't try to bypass anyone, but doesn't mean that one cannot get in, with this kind of a, weapon inside. So we have our protocol set in which, if required, God forbid, someone comes in with this kind of a force, uh, we have tested our preparedness in terms of responding to them. But not to say that it is not possible. No, it is possible. That if someone wants to simply walk in our emergency area, like accident emergency, which does not have this kind of a straight protocol, anybody can simply walk in with a gun, being a patient in a disguise kind of a thing. So that is one area which is a gray area, which can be a gray area across all the places in the world, I feel so. So, it's only, we can say, the profiling what we can do, and, try to minimize this kind of risk with proper coordination, with the local law enforcement energy, understand, try to, you can say, have threat perception of the scenarios, and understand any patient with the grievances, primarily whether he is a threat or whether he's not a threat for us.
Okay. Thank you. Last question to you, Dr. Parinita. How to conduct facility safety inspection rounds in hospital during COVID pandemic? Is the inspection of the facility management changed? Has the protocols changed? 2 minutes, please.
Yeah. So as far as the infection control protocols are concerned, there is a management team that takes care of it, and there is an infection control protocol that has been followed, and strict protocols are in place. There is a flying squad who makes sure that there is no mixing of places. The people who are designated for one particular place, they stay in their place and they don't move about a lot. The security guards are always in their position, and whenever they have to move about, and they have to go to for their lunch or something, so there is always a shift guard who is always manned there to take care of all these things. And the management is pretty strict about it, that the movement of the people is restricted to their designated places, and there is no mixing happening. There is no, even the suspected patients are kept in a separate areas, and they are placed, with proper distancing, so that they don't, catch infection from each other. So all that is in place, and with every day we are learning new things about this pandemic, and I think we are getting geared up in a better way every day.
Thank you so much. So I think very quickly, each one of you, can we have your closing remarks? Only 30 seconds. Mr. Puri.
Well, all I would like to say is that on the whole in India, the industry was able to show its mettle by its focused approach, resetting and retraining of the employees to be able to act as a force multiplier for the law enforcement and the medical fraternity, providing safety and security both to the frontline warriors, which are the medical facility, as well as we standing up as Corona warriors and being able to provide service despite all the odds that we have faced. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Rajesh, your closing statement, please.
I would say that as a security professional and authority over monitoring security services and trying to be, you can say, a bridge between the service providers and the internal customers, especially all the healthcare workers, including our clinicians. It is a challenge basically we are facing, and we have to upgrade ourselves. We have to get more trained about the new trends which are there in the market, to just upgrade ourselves. At the same time, we have to ensure that our morale is at high, and we are basically motivating all our team members, especially security and all the healthcare workers from our end. And we just have to upgrade. I can say that it is not over yet. So whatever we have done and whatever we are doing, we have to keep upgrading and we have to keep doing it as far as this pandemic is concerned. And we just have to pray that, that we do well, as a country, as an institution, and as a citizen. That is what I can say.
Thank you. Dr. Parinita, your closing statement, please.
Yeah, I would agree with both Mr. Anil Puri and Mr. Rajesh Sawant that, we've done a pretty good job, and we have to keep upgrading, ourselves, and we cannot lose our guard. We have to continue to be as stringent as we are, and as aware, and as responsible that we are. And if we work hand in hand, we're definitely going to achieve success, like in any other activity. If everybody is contributing and everybody is working so hard and working hand in hand, I am sure we'll overcome this as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. With this, we come to the end of today's webinar. And my special thanks to all the panelists, Mr. Anil Puri, Mr. Rajesh Sawant, and Dr. Parinita Kaur. You as a medical professional, as security professionals, you are doing a good job, not only in India, but I would like to compliment and appreciate the efforts of all the frontliners across the globe. Thank you very much for what you are doing, and thank you very much, the panelists here. Thank you so much. It was very nice to have you here. Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you, Rajesh.
With this, we come to the end. As we understood the perspective of the security provider, the security user, and a doctor who is not a security professional but a user of the of the security. To remind you, next is coming up. We are expecting nominations for the Outstanding Security Performance Awards. The UK nominations are open till 1st of October. The Romanian OSPA's nominations are open till 1st of October. Germany open till 29th of October. And we have OSPA award ceremony coming for the US on 25th of September, along with the GSX Plus. Kenya, the date is yet to be announced, and Benelux on 24th November. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The next, there is a series of webinars. You know that the OSPAs conduct weekly webinars every Tuesday and Thursday, generally at 3:30 British Standard Time. So the next one is coming up on the 17th, then we have on the 22nd, 24th, and 29th. Ladies and gentlemen, you will see me again as a panelist in the debating the implication of COVID-19 on the future of security in Benelux, so which is a curtain raiser on the Benelux OSPAs. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.